Catherine Blake sat in the tall chair that was meant for humans in the Galactic Council chamber. The chair was smaller than all the others, placed at the very back of the room like a child's seat at the adult table. She had been sitting in this same chair for 3 years now, watching alien species make decisions about the galaxy while treating humans like dangerous pets. The chamber was huge, with thousands of seats arranged in circles that rose up toward the ceiling. Each species had their own section, their own colors, their own strange smells and sounds. The Velkari sat in the front row, their blue skin shining under the bright lights. They were the oldest species in the council, and they never let anyone forget it. Behind them sat the Zephyrians, tall and thin like walking trees, their electronic voices buzzing through translators. The Cathari floated in water tanks, their tentacles waving as they spoke through machines that turned their thoughts into words. Catherine looked down at her notes. Today was supposed to be simple. The council was voting on new trade routes through human space, but she knew it would not be simple. Nothing was ever simple when it came to humans in the council. The chair recognizes Representative Zelkar of the Velkari Collective, announced the speaker, a floating ball of light that had no species at all. The Velkari representative stood up. He was old, even for his kind, with scars across his blue face from some ancient war. Honored council members, he began, his voice smooth like oil. Today we must discuss the human problem once again. Catherine felt her hands grip the arms of her chair. Here it comes, she thought. The humans have been members of this council for 32 standard years, Zelkar continued. In that time, they have started 4 territorial disputes, refused to follow 7 different peace treaties, and destroyed 3 neutral trading stations during what they called police actions. Angry sounds came from all around the chamber, clicking from the insect-like Hren, electronic buzzing from the Zephyrians, splashing from the Cathari in their tanks. Catherine had heard it all before. The humans claim these were accidents, Zelkar said, his voice getting louder. But we all know the truth. Humans are violent by nature, they cannot help themselves. Their entire history is nothing but war after war after war. Catherine started to stand up, but the speaker's light flashed red. The human representative will wait her turn, it announced. Zelkar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Which brings us to today's proposal. The Velkari Collective, with support from 47 other species, moves that all human colonies be placed under protective oversight by this council. The chamber exploded with noise. Some species cheered, others argued, but Catherine heard the numbers being called out. 847 votes in favor, 1 vote against. Hers. What does this oversight mean exactly? Catherine asked, her voice cutting through the noise. She did not wait for permission to speak this time. The Zephyrian Chancellor stood up next, his mechanical voice echoing through the chamber. It means, human Catherine Blake, that your species will no longer make decisions about expansion, trade, or military actions without council approval. You will have observers on every human world to make sure you follow galactic law. Observers, Catherine repeated. You mean guards. We prefer the term protective oversight, Zelkar said. You must understand, the other species in this galaxy have lived in peace for thousands of years before humans arrived. We have learned to solve problems with words, not weapons. Humans simply lack the emotional maturity for true galactic citizenship. Catherine felt something cold settle in her stomach. Emotional maturity, as if humans were children who could not be trusted with sharp objects. The human colonies are growing too fast, added another voice. This one belonged to a Cathari speaking through its machine. They take too many resources. They ask too many questions about our technology. They need guidance. Guidance, Catherine said. She looked around the chamber at all the alien faces staring down at her. Some looked sorry for her. Others looked annoyed. A few looked afraid, which surprised her. The vote has been taken, the speaker announced. Protective oversight of human colonies will begin in 30 standard days. The human representative may now respond. Catherine stood up slowly. The chamber became quiet, waiting to hear her beg or argue or promise that humans would do better. She had done all of those things before, In other meetings, with other votes, it never mattered. The Terran Federation has heard the will of this council, she said. Her voice was calm, which seemed to surprise some of the aliens. We have been members of this body for 32 years. In that time, we have followed every law, paid every tax, and sent our young people to die in your wars when you asked us to. The humans have also started conflicts, Zelkar interrupted. We have defended ourselves, Catherine shot back. When pirates attacked our trade ships, we fought back. When the Haren tried to claim our colony worlds, we fought back. When slavers tried to take our people, we fought back. You call this violence, we call it survival. See? Zelkar said to the other council members. Even now, they justify their aggressive behavior. Catherine looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at all the others. These species who had achieved peace by never fighting for anything worth having. The Terran Federation hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately, she said. We renounce all treaties, all agreements, and all protections afforded by this body. The chamber went completely silent, not even the sound of breathing, because half the species there did not breathe the same air as humans. You cannot be serious, Zelkar said, his blue face turning darker. Your species cannot survive without our guidance. You need our technology, our trade routes, our protection. Catherine smiled then, and several aliens moved backward in their seats. There was something in that smile that made them nervous. We will take our ships, our people, and our colonies, and we will leave Council, space entirely, she said. You wanted us gone? Consider it done. You will be back, Zelkar snarled. Humans always come crawling back when they realize they cannot handle the real galaxy alone. Catherine picked up her papers and walked toward the exit. At the door, she turned back one last time. We will see about that, she said. The door closed behind her with a soft sound that somehow felt like thunder. Captain Marcus Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance, watching the stars through the main screen. Behind him, 300 human ships waited for his signal. They were not warships. They were cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining, vessels, and colony transports. Every ship that humanity could gather for the largest moving job in galactic history. Captain, said his communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, we have confirmation from all fleet groups. Everyone is ready, Marcus nodded. 6 months had passed since Catherine Blake walked out of the council chambers. 6 months of secret planning, coded messages, and careful preparation. The aliens thought humans were throwing a tantrum. They had no idea what was really happening. Send the message, Marcus said. Sarah pressed a button and the same signal went out to every human colony, every human ship, every human station in council space. The message was simple. Pack everything. We are leaving. On New Terra, colony. Administrator Lisa Brennan read the message on her computer screen. She had been waiting for it, but seeing the words still made her heart race. She stood up and walked to her window, looking out at the city her people had built from nothing. New Terra had been a dead rock when humans arrived 20 years ago. Now it had millions of people, farms that fed half the sector, and factories that made everything from shoes to starships. The aliens had always said humans were too aggressive, too fast, too eager to change things. Maybe they were right. Lisa picked up her communicator. Attention all citizens, she announced. Operation Exodus begins now. All families report to transport zones. All workers shut down non-essential systems. We have 72 hours to empty this world. Across the colony, humans began the work they had practiced in secret for months. Factory workers dismantled production lines piece by piece. Farmers harvested what they could and destroyed the rest rather than leave it for aliens to take. Engineers pulled apart the power plants and communication arrays, taking every bit of technology with them. Are we really doing this? Asked Tommy, Clark, a young engineer who had spent his whole life on New Terra. Are we really leaving everything behind? Lisa looked at him. Tommy was 22 years old and had never lived anywhere else. To him, New Terra was home. But Lisa remembered Earth, and she remembered what humans were capable of when they were not being watched and judged by aliens who thought they knew better. We are not leaving everything behind, she told him. We are taking the most important thing with us. What is that? Each other. On the mining station Deep Rock, Chief Engineer Patricia Monroe oversaw the removal of equipment that had taken decades to install. The aliens thought humans were just good at digging holes and breaking things. They had no idea how much humans had learned by working in their space. Make sure you get the quantum processors, Patricia told her team. And do not forget the exotic matter converters. The aliens think we are too stupid to understand their technology. Let them keep thinking that. Her assistant David Kim looked worried. Chief, are we allowed to take this stuff? I mean, the patents belong to the Velkari Corporation. Patricia laughed, but it was not a happy sound. David, the Velkari, just voted to put guards on every human world because they think we are too dangerous to govern ourselves. You think they care about our legal rights? She pointed at a complex machine that hummed with power. That converter was built by human hands in a human facility, using materials humans mined from human space. The fact that some blue-skinned alien drew the blueprints first does not mean we cannot take our own work with us. The team worked faster, loading everything onto transport ships. Equipment that had been bolted down for years came apart in hours. Humans were good at taking things apart when they needed to be. Dr. Nathan Pierce watched from his laboratory as his research team packed up 30 years of scientific work. Nathan was the head of the Terran Research Division, and he knew secrets that would make the aliens very unhappy if they found out. Sir, said his assistant, Dr. Angela Foster, what about the classified projects, the ones the Council does not know about? Nathan smiled. The Council thought they knew everything humans were working on. They demanded reports, inspections, and oversight of human research. What they did not know was that humans were very good at having 2 sets of books. All of it comes with us, Nathan said, especially the classified projects. Angela looked at the list on her computer. Projects with names like Prometheus Engine and Dark Matter Weaponization and Quantum Tunneling Drive. Things that humans had been working on in secret, using alien technology as a starting point but pushing it far beyond what the aliens thought possible. The aliens taught us their science, Nathan said, but they never understood how we think. They innovate through committees and meetings and years of debate. We innovate through desperation and spite and staying up all night until we solve the problem. He looked around his laboratory one last time. Let them keep their council and their rules and their civilized discussions. We will show them what human science can do when it does not have to ask permission first. On every human world, the same scene played out. Families packing their lives into boxes. Workers dismantling the infrastructure they had spent decades building. Children asking their parents why they had to leave the only homes they had ever known. The aliens watched through their spy satellites and communication intercepts. The Cathari news networks called it the Great Human Tantrum. Velkari officials made jokes about emotional primitives who could not handle adult conversation. Zephyrian analysts predicted that half the human colonies would be begging to return. Within a year, they did not understand what they were seeing. This was not a retreat. This was preparation. Captain Rodriguez watched the reports coming in from across human space. 300 colonies, 50 million people, thousands of ships, all moving toward the same destination, the Galactic Rim, where old dead stars waited in the darkness between civilizations. Sir, said Lieutenant Mitchell, the last transport from New Terra has launched. Colony evacuation is complete. Marcus nodded. New Terra, humanity's proudest achievement, was now an empty world. In 3 days, humans had taken apart everything they had built in 20 years. They had left nothing behind except bare rock and memories. What course, Captain? Asked his navigator. Marcus looked at the star charts. Out there, beyond the edge of Council space, ancient worlds waited for new owners. Worlds where humans could build what they wanted, research what they wanted, become what they were meant to be without aliens looking over their shoulders and telling them to slow down. Set course for the Outer Rim, he said. It is time to find out what humans can really do. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying the entire human race toward an uncertain future. Behind them, they left empty worlds and confused aliens who thought they had won a great victory. They could not have been more wrong. Admiral Victoria Hayes stood on the observation deck of New Haven Station, looking out at something that should have been impossible. 2 years ago, this system had been empty space with 3 dead planets and a dying star. Now it was the center of human civilization, and it was growing every day. The first planet, which humans now called Liberty, had been a frozen ball of ice. Human terraforming equipment had melted the ice, created an atmosphere, and seeded it with earth plants that grew in the artificial soil. Now Liberty had cities with millions of people and factories that worked day and night. The second planet, Independence, had been a desert with poisonous air. Human machines had cleaned the air and built underground water systems. Now Independence grew food for the entire human population and had become the testing ground for new technologies that the Council could never imagine. The third planet, Defiance, had been completely dead with no atmosphere at all. Humans had built domed cities connected by tunnels, and inside those domes they had created research facilities that made the old Council laboratories look like children's toys. "Admiral," said Commander Jake Sullivan, her second in command. "The morning reports are ready." Victoria took the tablet from him and read through the numbers. Ship production was up 20% from last month. The new quantum drives were working better than expected. The weapon testing on Defiance had produced results that even she found frightening. "What about the Council?" she asked. "Any news from their space?" Jake smiled. "Still celebrating. The Cathari news services are calling the last 2 years the golden age of galactic peace. No human conflicts to deal with, no human demands for territory, no human questions about their precious technology." Victoria laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "They think we disappeared into the dark and died quietly like good little primitives." "Speaking of primitives," Jake said, "Dr. Sullivan wants to see you. She says Project Prometheus is ready for the next phase." Victoria nodded and walked through the station corridors toward the research levels. New Haven Station was huge, bigger than anything humans had built while they were in Council space. It had to be. It was not just a space station. It was a fortress, a factory, a research center, and the capital of humanity's new empire all at the same time. Dr. Amanda Sullivan was waiting in Laboratory 7, surrounded by machines that hummed with power. Amanda was the smartest human Victoria had ever met, and that was saying something. Before the Exodus, Amanda had been just another researcher following Council rules and asking Council permission for every experiment. Now she was free to think, as big as she wanted. "Victoria," Amanda said, "come look at this." She led Victoria to a table where a small device sat under a protective dome. It was about the size of a coffee cup and seemed to bend the light around it in strange ways. "What am I looking at?" Victoria asked. "A singularity generator," Amanda said casually, as if she had just invented a better toaster. "We can create artificial black holes and control them completely. Each one produces more power than a Council fusion reactor and weighs about 2 pounds. Victoria stared at the device. The Council had been using fusion power for thousands of years and thought it was the height of technology. Humans had been in the outer rim for 2 years and had already moved beyond it. "How?" Victoria asked. Amanda grinned. "Remember what the Valkyrie said about human emotional immaturity? They were right in a way. We do not accept limits the way they do. When they hit a wall in their research, they form a committee to study the problem for 50 years. When we hit a wall, we find a way to go through it, over it, or around it." She pointed to another machine across the room. "That is a dark matter manipulator. The Council thinks dark matter cannot be controlled. They are wrong. And over there is a prototype for something we are calling a reality anchor. It lets us change the laws of physics in a small area around our ships." Victoria felt a chill run down her spine. "Amanda, what exactly are you building here?" "The future," Amanda said simply. "A future where humans do not have to ask permission to exist." On Defiance, Colonel Ryan Martinez watched his soldiers train with weapons that would give Council ethicists nightmares. The human expeditionary forces were not like the old colonial defense units that had to follow Council rules about acceptable weapons and tactics. "Remember," Ryan told his troops, "the aliens spent thousands of years learning to fight. Wars with rules and honor and gentlemen's agreements. They think war is a game with points and timeouts and referees. He pointed to a soldier who was testing a rifle that fired bullets made of compressed energy. We know better. War is not a game. War is what happens when civilization fails, and the only rule is that the winners get to write the history books. The soldiers nodded. They had all grown up hearing alien politicians talk about human violence as if it were a disease that needed to be cured. They had all been taught to be ashamed of their species' warrior heritage. Not anymore. The council called us violent, Ryan continued. They were right. But they made the mistake of thinking that was a weakness instead of a strength. Evolution made us violent because the universe is a dangerous place and nice species end up extinct. A lieutenant named Danny Cooper raised his hand. Sir, what if they try to negotiate when we return? Ryan smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. Then we will show them what happens when you back a predator into a corner, and then act surprised when it shows its teeth. Back on New Haven Station, Victoria read the latest intelligence reports from Council Space. The Velkari had expanded into former human territory and were strip mining the planets humans had left behind. The Kuthari had taken over human trade routes and were charging higher prices than humans ever had. The Zephyrians had claimed human research stations and were trying to figure out how human technology worked. They think they won, Victoria said to Jake as they walked through the station's command center. They divided up our old territory like it was prize money and congratulated themselves on getting rid of the troublemakers. What they do not know, Jake said, is that we took all the important stuff with us. The planets they are fighting over are just rocks and empty buildings. Victoria looked at the tactical displays showing human fleet positions throughout the outer rim. 50,000 ships all equipped with technology that made council vessels look like antiques. Millions of soldiers trained to fight without rules or mercy. Weapons that could crack planets and shields that could stop anything the council might throw at them. How long until we are ready? She asked. Jake checked his timeline. Dr. Sullivan says 6 more months for the final weapon systems. Colonel Martinez needs 3 months to finish training the assault forces. Fleet production can deliver the new battleships in 4 months. Victoria nodded. 2 years of hiding in the dark, building and planning and preparing. The council thought humanity had learned its lesson about trying to play with the big boys. They thought humans had crawled away to die in shame and obscurity. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. Send a message to all commanders, Victoria said. Tell them the silent years are almost over. Soon it will be time to go home and collect what we are owed. In the depths of space, human ships moved through the darkness like sharks circling their prey. The galaxy had enjoyed 2 years of peace without humans to disturb their civilized discussions and careful diplomacy. That peace was about to end, and the universe would learn that there are worse things than human violence. There is human patience. Fleet Commander Ashley Thompson stood on the bridge of the UNS Retribution as it materialized inside the Velkari home system. Around her, 18 other human battleships appeared from nowhere, their reality anchors allowing them to ignore the normal rules of space travel. The Velkari orbital defense platforms, built to stop ships coming through hyperspace lanes, were completely useless against vessels that could appear anywhere they wanted. Ma'am, said Lieutenant Monica Williams at the sensor station, we are detecting massive confusion in their communications. They have no idea how we got here. Ashley smiled. The Velkari had always been so proud of their advanced technology and superior intellect. They had spent the last 2 years bragging about how they had civilized the galaxy by getting rid of the violent humans. Now they were about to learn what real violence looked like. Open a channel to their defense command, Ashley ordered. The main screen flickered and showed a Velkari admiral, his blue face pale with shock. Behind him, Ashley could see other Velkari officers running around in panic, their careful composure completely gone. This is Admiral Keth Vor of the Velkari Defense Fleet, the alien said, his voice shaking. You are in violation of galactic law. Identify yourselves immediately. This is Fleet Commander Ashley Thompson of the Terran Military Command, Ashley replied. Her voice was calm, almost friendly. We are here to collect a debt. Debt? What debt? Humans abandoned this sector 2 years ago. You have no legal claim here. Ashley's smile grew wider. Admiral, do you remember what your representative Zelkar said in the council chambers? He said humans would come crawling back when we realized we could not handle the real galaxy alone. Well, we are back, but we are not crawling. On the planet below, the Velkari government watched their orbital defenses crumble under weapons that seemed to ignore physics. Energy shields that had protected their world for centuries melted like ice under the focused fire of human dark matter cannons. Space stations that had taken decades to build disappeared in flashes of light. The UNS Retribution itself was a nightmare made real. Powered by an artificial black hole and armed with weapons that bent reality around them, it represented everything the Council had thought impossible. The ship's hull seemed to shift and change, making it hard to target. Its weapons fired beams of pure destruction that passed through Velkari shields as if they were not even there. How are they doing this? Admiral Kethvor asked, his voice breaking. This technology should not exist. You taught us your science, Ashley said, but you never understood what we would do with it. You innovate through committees and consensus. We innovate through desperation and anger. Guess which method works better? Across the galaxy, the same scene played out in 18 different systems. Human fleets appeared without warning. There, ships using technology that made Council defenses useless. The carefully organized alien military forces, trained to fight honorable battles with rules and protocols, fell apart when faced with enemies who fought to win instead of fighting to look good. On the Kuthari homeworld, Admiral Kevin Brooks watched tentacled aliens flee their floating cities as human ships emerged from hyperspace. The Kuthari had always been proud of their peaceful nature and their advanced philosophy. They believed that violence was a sign of primitive thinking, and that civilized beings could solve any problem through discussion. This is Admiral Kevin Brooks of the Terran Military Command, he announced on all Kuthari frequencies. You declared us unfit for galactic citizenship. You imposed restrictions on our growth. You spoke of our violent nature as if it were a flaw to be corrected. The main Kuthari leader, a massive creature floating in a tank of green liquid, appeared on the communication screen. Admiral Brooks, surely we can discuss this like civilized beings. Violence serves no purpose. We can negotiate. Kevin laughed, and the sound made several Kuthari flinch. Negotiate? Like you negotiated when you voted to put guards on our worlds? Like you negotiated when you carved up our territory after we left? He gestured to the tactical display showing Kuthari ships burning in space. Today you learn why evolution made us this way. The universe is not a peaceful place, and nice species do not survive long without someone mean standing guard. The Kuthari tried to surrender, but their communications were jammed by human electronic warfare systems that operated on frequencies alien technology could not even detect. Human troops wearing armor that made them look like walking nightmares stormed their administrative centers and arrested their government officials. On Nexus Prime, the great council station that had been the center of galactic civilization for thousands of years, panic spread through the corridors like wildfire. Representatives from dozens of species ran through the halls, screaming in languages that had never known true fear before. How many systems have fallen? Asked the Zephyrian Chancellor, his mechanical voice crackling with static. 18 so far, replied a Wren intelligence officer, his insect-like claws clicking nervously. All major military installations, all primary government centers. The humans are not just attacking randomly, they know exactly where to hit us. The Chancellor's electronic brain processed this information with growing horror. They had spies. All these years they were watching us, learning our weaknesses. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. Humans had not needed spies. They had needed only patience and the willingness to remember every slight, every insult, every condescending comment made during 30 years of council membership. Emergency session after emergency session was called, but no one had answers. The combined fleets of 23 spacefaring civilizations, representing thousands of years of military tradition, could not stand against human ships that fought like nothing they had ever seen. The human vessels moved like living things, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons ignored every known law of physics. Their tactics made no sense according to any military textbook ever written. They fought not to capture territory or resources, but to prove a point, and that made them infinitely more dangerous. "Sir," said Captain Derek Parker as his ship, the UNS Vengeance, moved through the wreckage of what had once been the proud Zephyrian fleet. "We are receiving surrender offers from 17 different species." "Tell them surrender is not an option," Derek replied. "They wanted to treat us like children who could not be trusted with adult responsibilities. Children do not get to surrender when the adults come home angry." The siege of Nexus Prime began at dawn, Council time. Human ships surrounded the massive station from every direction, their weapons trained on the structure that had symbolized alien superiority for millennia. Inside the station, alien diplomats who had spent their entire careers talking about the importance of peace and understanding huddled in conference rooms, finally learning what terror felt like. "This is Admiral Kevin Brooks," came the broadcast on all council frequencies. "You have 4 hours to evacuate all non-essential personnel from Nexus Prime. After that, we begin our demonstration of what human military technology can accomplish, when it is not held back by your rules and ethics." The evacuation was chaos. Alien civilians, many of whom had never seen violence except in historical documentaries, scrambled for transport ships. The proud species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years ran like scared children from the monsters they had created through their own arrogance. At exactly 4 hours, the bombardment began. Not to destroy the station, but to show what human patience looked like when it finally ran out. Energy beams carved messages into the hull. Weapons that could have cracked planets instead wrote words in alien languages. "Remember New Terra. Remember the vote. Remember what you called us." The siege lasted exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes. When the station surrendered, humanity had effectively conquered the government that had ruled the galaxy since before humans had discovered fire. But conquest was not the goal. The goal was to make sure that no alien species would ever again mistake human restraint for human weakness. As Admiral Ashley Thompson walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime, past cowering aliens who had once looked down on humanity from their tall chairs, she remembered Catherine Blake's words from 2 years ago. We will see about that, they had seen. And now the entire galaxy would see what happened when you pushed a species that had fought its way up from caves and claws all the way to the stars. The universe had learned what fear truly meant. Now it was time to learn what justice looked like when humans were the ones holding the scales. General Patricia Monroe stood where Ambassador Catherine Blake had once sat, but the council chambers looked nothing like they had 2 years ago. The tall, decorative seats arranged in circles were gone. In their place sat simple, practical chairs arranged in rows, all at the same level. No more hierarchy, no more species sitting higher than others, no more special treatment for the advanced civilizations. At the front of the chamber, where the floating speaker used to hover, stood a simple podium with the symbol of the Terran, hegemony, a closed fist holding the stars. "The session will come to order," Patricia announced to the assembled delegates. Many of them still bore scars from humanity's return to galactic politics. The Velkari representative had a mechanical arm to replace the one he lost when his flagship exploded. The Kuthari delegate floated in a smaller tank than before, her tentacles twitching nervously. The Zephyrian Chancellor's voice box had been damaged and now spoke in a whisper instead of the booming electronic voice he once used. "Today marks 6 months since the establishment of the Terran hegemony," Patricia continued. 6 months since this galaxy learned that peace through strength is more effective than peace through weakness. She looked around the chamber at faces that had once looked down on humanity with condescension and pity. Now those same faces watched her with fear and reluctant respect. Some looked angry, but they kept their anger to themselves. They had learned what happened to species that challenged human authority. The old council believed in consensus and compromise, Patricia said. It took you 50 years to decide on new trade routes, and 100 years to respond to piracy. The Terran hegemony believes in results. The statistics spoke for themselves. Piracy, which had plagued shipping lanes for centuries, had been eliminated in 3 months when human patrol fleets showed what they considered appropriate punishment for attacking merchant vessels. Pirates who had operated freely under council, protection now faced human justice, which was swift, permanent, and very public. Trade disputes that had simmered for decades were resolved within days when human arbitrators arrived with enough firepower to make resistance pointless. No more years of committee meetings and diplomatic protests. Human mediators made decisions quickly and enforced them immediately. Director Clark will now present the development report, Patricia announced. Dr. Benjamin Clark, now Director of Galactic Development, approached the podium with a tablet full of numbers that would have been impossible under the old system. Infrastructure development is proceeding ahead of schedule in all sectors, he began. The transformation was remarkable. Under council rule, major construction projects took decades to approve and centuries to complete. Under human management, the same projects were finished in months. Hyperspace lanes that had been proposed but never built suddenly appeared, connecting distant systems and boosting trade beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The new shipping routes through the Outer Rim have increased cargo capacity by 40%, Benjamin continued. The orbital factories around Nexus Prime are producing more goods than the entire Velkari industrial system used to make. In the audience, the Velkari delegate shifted uncomfortably. His people had been the galaxy's primary manufacturers for thousands of years. Now human factories using human efficiency and human technology had made Velkari industry look slow and outdated. What about colonial disputes? Asked a brave Hren representative, his insect voice clicking with nervousness. Benjamin smiled. There are no colonial disputes. When two species claim the same system, human arbitrators review the case and make a decision within 24 hours. Appeals are not accepted. End of dispute. The alien delegates looked at each other with expressions that mixed relief and resentment. They missed the old days when they could argue about territorial claims for decades, filing complaint after complaint and holding meeting after meeting. But they could not argue with the results. For the first time in galactic history, the border, wars that had raged for millennia were simply over. Captain Lisa Murphy, now head of Hegemony Security, stood to give the safety report. Sector crime is down 93% from pre-hegemony levels, she announced. Response time to emergency calls averages 4 hours instead of 4 days. The old council had been famous for its careful, measured responses to crisis situations. When slavers attacked a colony, the council would form a committee to study the problem, hold hearings to gather testimony, and debate the appropriate response for months while the slaves suffered. Human response fleets simply arrived, eliminated the threat, and left. No committees, no debates, no mercy for those who preyed on the innocent. The Zephyrian representative has requested to speak, Patricia announced. The tall, thin alien stood slowly, his damaged voice box crackling. We acknowledge the efficiency of human administration, he whispered. But we must ask, what of our traditions, our cultural practices, our way of life? Patricia looked at him with something that might have been sympathy, if one ignored the hardness in her eyes. Your traditions are preserved in museums. Your cultural practices continue as long as they do not interfere with hegemony law. Your way of life has been replaced with something that actually works. She gestured to the chamber around them. For thousands of years, your species sat in these seats and congratulated yourselves on your civilization while pirates raided trade, routes, slavers stole children, and entire systems suffered because you were too civilized to use force when force was needed. The Zephyrian delegate's shoulders sagged. But surely there must be room for discussion, for negotiation, for— No, Patricia said simply. Discussion is what you had before. Negotiation is what you tried for millennia. The result was chaos, disguised as democracy. The hegemony offers order. In the back of the chamber, Catherine Blake watched the proceedings with satisfaction. She was no longer an ambassador. Her new title was Historical Advisor, which meant she was there to make sure no one forgot how they had gotten to this point. Catherine remembered every insult, every condescending comment, every vote that had treated humanity like dangerous children. She remembered Zelkar's sneer when he said humans lacked emotional maturity. She remembered the Cathari delegate who said humans needed guidance. She remembered the vote that had driven humanity from council space. "Are there any other questions?" Patricia asked the chamber. Silence. The alien delegates had learned that questions were often interpreted as challenges, and challenges to human authority were dealt with swiftly and permanently. "Then this session is adjourned," Patricia said. "Remember that the next supply convoy departs for the Outer Rim colonies tomorrow. Any species wishing to contribute resources to hegemony expansion may submit their proposals to Director Clark. As..." The aliens filed out of the chamber, their heads down and their voices quiet. Catherine walked to the front where Patricia waited. "Any regrets?" Catherine asked. Patricia looked around the chamber that had once echoed with alien speeches about human violence and primitive behavior. Now it was quiet, efficient, and orderly. "About establishing human rule over the galaxy?" Patricia asked. "About ending the chaos and corruption of the old council? About creating a system where decisions get made and problems get solved?" She paused, considering the question seriously. "My only regret is that we waited so long to do it." Outside the chamber in the corridors of Nexus Prime, alien civilians went about their daily lives under human supervision. They worked in jobs assigned by human administrators, lived in housing allocated by human planners, and followed laws written by human legislators. Some of them remembered the old days, when their species had been proud members of the galactic community instead of subjects of the Terran hegemony. They remembered when they had looked down on humans as violent primitives who could not understand civilized society. But most of them, especially the younger ones, had adapted to the new reality. They lived better than their parents had. They were safer than any generation before them. They enjoyed prosperity that the old council had never been able to provide. The price was simple. They did what humans told them to do, when humans told them to do it, without argument or delay. It was a price the galaxy had learned to pay gladly. The day humans departed the Galactic Council had indeed been the day the universe learned what fear truly meant. But it had also been the day the universe learned what effective government looked like, when it was run by a species that cared more about results than reputation. In her private office, Catherine Blake kept a recording of that final council session, particularly Zelkar's words about human emotional immaturity. She played it sometimes when she needed to remember why mercy was a luxury humanity could no longer afford. The galaxy was peaceful now, quiet, efficient, and it would stay that way, because humans were very good at making sure people learned their lessons and remembered them.